Alright folks, how are we doing? It's Shabbash. Welcome back to the channel. It's Orna again, and today we've got a short guide on view distance for you. And what is view distance? How can you use it to your benefit during your Orna gameplay? Gonna do all of that. And let's light a torch under this, get started straight away. Well, as you might expect, view distance increases your viewing range in the world map. It's that simple. Now there's various sources of view distance, and what it does is it allows you to see buildings, see bosses, see more mobs from further away. It's quite a simple concept, yes, but a lot of people always ask, how does it work? How much view distance does this item give me? Etc, etc. Now, first things first, every single source of view distance gives the same amount of view distance multiplier. Every single source of view distance adds a 20% multiplier to your current view distance, okay? Now there's a base view distance of 180 meters. So you add one source of view distance and that gets multiplied by 20%. So you would go from 180 meters to 216 meters view distance. Now because it's all multiplied together, the more sources you have, the bigger the increase is going to get per increment of added view distance. Currently you can get a maximum of 8 additional sources of view distance, giving you a total maximum view distance range of 770 meters in the current version of the game during January 2021. Of course, in the future OD may add additional sources of view distance, so just bear in mind that they're likely going to be implemented in the same way, going to give you another 20% multiplier. Okay, let's talk about sources of view distance and how we can actually increase our view distance. So there's 4 different ways of increasing our view distance. Firstly, you have equipable items that increase your view distance. Then you have consumable items such as a torch or even your keep brazier. Then we have certain classes also have passive abilities that increase the view distance. And then of course we have the seeker spec, which is a tier 5 specialization that just has one passive which gives us a straight 20% increase to view distance. So those are the 4 different ways, and now let's dive into a bit more detail into each one. And we can check our current view distance going into our status page, and it's at the bottom here, view distance. You can see we've got 180 meters, that's the limit, that's the base. So just remember, I know it's obvious, but view distance is only determined in your world equipment loadout. Having things in your PvP and stuff, that's not going to affect your view distance in the world. So the first source of view distance you'll ever come across in the game is the torch. You might not realize it, but when you make a new character, you automatically have one used for you, and you can of course buy them in shops, and it will tell you, yes, it increases visibility at night, and it also attracts more monsters to you. Various sources of view distance will attract more mobs, so torches are available for literally everybody, even just starting the game. They're very cheap. Always use them when you're out in the world, and there we go, use a torch. So you have a consumable increased view distance buff for 1 hour, and let's check our status page, and now we've got our first increase of 20%. That's gone up to 216 meters there. Our next increase is available once we build a keep. This is another temporary buff that lasts for 1 hour, and you access it from the keep, and it's the brazier. You hold to light. You can use it once every 22 hours now that there's a lowered cooldown. It used to be 24 hours. It acts the same way as a torch. It increases mob spawns, increases view distance. So we can treat the brazier like a consumable that lasts for a limited amount of time. The next set of view distance sources are going to be equipable items that we can equip in our world loadout. So the first equipable item that gives view distance that most people are going to come across is lanterns. Now you can actually get a lantern at tier 1 on completing the main storyline quest, the Lord of Goblins I think it's called. Basically asks you to kill a goblin lord and you get a lantern as a reward. Now that's really cool because a lantern is actually a tier 3 item, so you can't buy them in shops until you reach tier 3. You can then buy them in shops if you want. They cost 5,000 gold a piece, and just to show you, here we go, we've got 15 lanterns in stock in this shop. Lanterns can also drop from mimic mobs, so you might get a second one before actually reaching tier 3, and we'll come on to why you actually want to equip lanterns later on anyway. Okay, so we've equipped 2 lanterns in our world loadout. Let's check how much view distance we have now. 310 meters. So we've already, with 3 different sources of view distance, we've increased our total view distance by 130 meters, which is not too bad. Let's see if we can actually see any more buildings at the moment. Okay, not really. One important note regarding items that give view distance: quality does not affect how much view distance you gain. An ornate lantern gives you the same view distance as a broken lantern, so don't worry about quality. Obviously, if you want to show off to your mates that you got an ornate lantern, then yeah, obviously equip that. Super cool to have shiny stuff. Of course, as you progress through the game, there are more accessories that give view distance. For example, if you were at tier 5 during December, you might have got some lasting lanterns from Scrooge, and realistically they actually do the same thing as lanterns. At tier 8 you also come across Midnight Eyes that drop from the Midnight Gazers, and they just have a little bit of stats. You have HP and mana, but again, this Ornate Midnight Eye is going to give the same amount of view distance as this normal Midnight Eye. The next item slot that we can get view distance from is the weapon slot, but from around tier 4 and tier 5 there are a few items that you can find, either from killing certain mobs or from completing NPC quests. Again, if you're a mage you can kill the Great Gazer boss and you get a gazing staff. Even better if you get a high quality one, you can actually use that as your main weapon as well. For attack based builds you can find the Fire Pike at tier 4. On completing the NPC Pyre's quest you have to give him 50 Firestones and he will give you the Fire Pike. That gives you another source of view distance as your weapon. You can equip that. So of course it's not a very strong weapon, but if you need the extra view distance for whatever reason, then that's something the attack builds can equip. Of course, as you go up in the higher tiers you get more and more weapons that give view distance, such as Ascalon from tier 7 drops from the arena. You have the Arisen Gazing Staff, so you have the Fade Gazing Staff actually as well for magic users. All the way at tier 10 you have the Arisen Gazing Staff. If you were around last summer when Surtur was here, you of course have Surtur's Sword and his Arisen Surtur's Sword. So as a mage I've just equipped my Arisen Gazing Staff, and the final slot that we can get view distance from in our world loadout is the Offhand. Now there's currently only 2 items in the game that give you view distance in your offhand. One of them is the Everlasting Torch. Now that was actually a limited event raid item that dropped from the Mimic events, I think. That was back in August, September 2020. So of course not everyone is going to have access to that. However, there is the tier 9 Mammon Sword that you get from completing the main storyline questline at tier 9, and that gives view distance. That was recently buffed to give view distance. It didn't used to give view distance, but now it is actually a fairly decent item with the additional view distance. I really like using that in the world, and you get a bunch of other stats on it. It also gives you temporary buffs when attacking, so super nice item. Okay, so there we go. That's currently our maximum view distance from equipable items equipped. There's no armors currently in the game that give view distance. Maybe that will come in the future, I don't know. Let's check how much view distance we have now. As Heretic Swashbuckler we've got 446 meters of view distance. That's not too bad. And that will actually lead us on nicely to the next source of view distance, which comes from classes and specializations. So there's currently 4 classes in the game that have additional view distance as part of their passive, and typically they are based thematically around Forces of Anwin, and they're all actually based on the Thief line as well. So firstly we have the Majestic class at tier 5. We get the view distance from the Eternal Light passive. If you're going attack based and you're wondering between Majestic or Dragoon, perhaps the additional view distance is enough of a bonus for you to choose Majestic over Dragoon. Then we have the Magistrate class at tier 7, which has the exact same passive as Eternal Light, and then obviously Arcanic has Eternal Light too, so it's the same idea. The view distance is the same, remember. And finally at tier 10 we have the Realm Shifter class with Realm's Light. That is the passive that gives us added view distance. So we're switching to Realm Shifter to get maximum view distance, and then finally we're going to change our specialization to the Seeker, which is a tier 5 spec. It costs 25,000 Orns to change to it, and apart from having a really awesome sprite, you don't get any additional stats, you don't get any skills, but you do get the Seeker ability. You always know where to go, you have increased view distance. Again, it's the same amount of added view distance, 20%. So now we're Realm Shifter Seeker, awesome sprite. Showing you my Realm Shifter world loadout, you can see I've got Arisen Surtur's Sword, I've got an Everlasting Torch, 2 lanterns. We've got a torch equipped. We don't have our brazier, unfortunately that's on cooldown right now, so we don't have our maximum view distance available, but let's check. We've got 642 meters of view distance available to us, and from this point, if we go to the world map, we can see hopefully some additional buildings pop up. There we go, just in time. We've got a dungeon we can reach from here. There's another bestiary, which we're not obviously worried about. Scrolling around, we can actually see, I don't think I can see this NPC actually without any view distance either, so there you go, you can see more NPCs. I've got another dungeon in view range when I've got this amount of view distance equipped, and there's a boss that I didn't see before. Kill that in a second, and yeah, here you go, another dungeon. So 3 dungeons there available. Also gives you access to inns and stuff to complete quests. So I can just show you this undead golem. If I change class to Heretic or something that doesn't have any view distance stuff equipped, okay, I'll just go Noble Gaia quickly because there's no view distance stuff equipped, I'm pretty sure. Nope. So now this undead golem should disappear, and actually if we try and click on him and try and battle him, you can see it says move closer to challenge this monster. So we're not actually in range. It takes a few seconds for the server to catch up. So if you go in the Orna guide and go to progression boosters, you'll be able to see the full list of items that give you additional view distance, including consumables like the brazier and torches, as well as the classes. Basically any source of view distance is on there. Okay, so let's talk about why you might want to utilize view distance in the world, and at what point during your class progression you might actually want to start using view distance. And I hope you might have worked it out for yourself by now that the most obvious thing is that you can see dungeons and bosses from further away. So firstly, it gives you access to buildings from further away. Example, this alchemist, I can reach from my couch with more view distance items. If you're traveling, you might be able to see demon forges and alchemists from further away. That's always useful. And if you're equipping view distance gear for the first time around your local area, that can allow you to map out a nice path for doing dungeon runs. And we can utilize view distance effectively to enter dungeons by having our actual equipment and proper experience gear, or whatever gear we're using to farm dungeons, in our gauntlet loadout, while in our world loadout we have full view distance. You click this checkbox, add loadout, and while you enter the dungeon, you're going to be using the equipment in this loadout, and that's exactly what we want to do, right? We don't want to use view distance gear in here because we don't need view distance in the dungeon itself. We want to gain XP, we want to gain orns, we want to be able to do more damage. So this is probably the number one use case, in my opinion, for utilizing view distance. Being able to enter dungeons from further away is going to allow you, especially when traveling down the road or even just walking around your local area, that's going to allow you to enter more dungeons and complete more dungeons, get more experience, more orns, more gear. Secondly, of course, we kill that undead golem and the mimic king. If you're traveling, it's super good. You're going to be able to kill more bosses. I guess that's actually one disadvantage as well. If you're killing bosses for experience and orns and you've got full view distance gear on, you're actually going to lose out on that increased experience gain from items such as monster tombs and band of gods. So that's one disadvantage of going in the world, but going into dungeons, we don't need to worry about it. Another disadvantage is, of course, if we are the seeker spec, yes, we have more view distance, but we don't get any additional features from the spec at all. We don't get any increased stats, we don't get any skills, we don't get any skill slots, and that's it. So you're limited to how strong your class is on its own without an additional spec on it. So let's finish off on when to actually start using view distance. And I think it's not going to be the same answer for everybody. Depends on your current state of the game, depends on what gear you have available to you already, whether or not you've picked up any limited event gear such as the Everlasting Torch, or if you're around already for Searcher. If you're already around for Searcher, then there's a good chance you should know when to use view distance already. So concentrating on newer players to the game, when should you use things like a torch? Well, honestly, you should be using a torch every single time you play the game in the world, even if you're just playing for 10 minutes, killing a few mobs on your lunch break or your tea break. Remember, it increases the amount of mobs on your screen, so that's going to allow you a better chance of completing daily quests, even improving your chance of completing your story quest line as well. On the same note, lanterns do the same thing. So equipping 2 lanterns, we've increased our view range, we can see more mobs, there's more mobs popping onto the screen. It's going to make completing quests easier. Quests are a great source of orns, especially from the achievements. As well, if you complete 250 quests, you get 250,000 orns. That is huge in the early game. And honestly, if you can do a small amount of daily quests and keep up with your main storyline, that's probably the best way to unlock your current tier's class, going up to like tier 5, maybe even tier 6. So you can definitely use lanterns as soon as you get them. So definitely, if you're managing to play fairly regularly while you're out and about, if you're commuting to work, or if you're just going on a walk regularly every single day. I know a lot of people are still in lockdown, such as myself, but equipping those lanterns early on will not only allow you to see more mobs and complete the quest lines, but will also allow you to map out your local area for dungeons, for inns as well, to get even more quests done, and of course will allow you to see more bosses to again increase our orn gain, increase our experience gain, and get gauntlet keys so you can then enter those dungeons. I like to challenge new players to try and enter dungeons from around tier 5. Accumulating those extra orns from completing quests and killing more bosses will hopefully allow you to unlock your tier 5 class sooner as well, and then being able to at least try to do more boss dungeons at tier 5 will allow you to gain more experience, to kill more bosses, to complete the achievement for killing bosses, also completing the gauntlet achievements. Everything kind of snowballs together, and I think view distance basically increases the speed of being able to complete those early game achievements at a higher rate. And even with just 4 sources of view distance, you actually double your base view distance range. So that's a torch, 2 lanterns, and a fire pike or draconian archistaff. That's, you've got 370 meters of view distance. You're going to see twice as much dungeons and bosses at that point. So I think we've covered a lot of the pros and cons already. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing for more Orna content. We're going to do a lot more shorter guides like this, focusing on individual mechanics and gameplay features. Please let me know in the comments if you've got any further questions on view distance, and also let me know what you would like to see next as a short guide video. Otherwise, I'm Shabbash, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Ciao.